it was wrong. Your activity was done with the intent to mislead people, and that is a violation, and that is all what market manipulation means. Moving on to standard number 3. Moving on to standard 3, duties to clients. The first substandard in that is standard 3A, is loyalty, prudence and care. What it says is, members and candidates must have a duty of loyalty to their clients. They must place their clients' interest above their employers and then their own. Always remember this while studying ethics, that there is a certain hierarchy that has to be followed when you're thinking of किसके लिए अच्छा करना है. Why? Because sometimes एक का अच्छा might not be दूसरे का अच्छा, right? So how to select कि who should you try to benefit first? Remember the hierarchy I'm gonna say. Client number 1, then your employer or the person who has employed you, and lastly your personal interest. You will always come last. That is what ethics says. आपको हमेशा client को ऊपर रखना है, फिर अपने employer को, फिर अपने आप को. And this loyalty, prudence and care, this entire standard 3A just says one thing: customer is king. Your customer, your client is above everything else. आपको हर time पे, हर moment पे, you have to keep them above yourself, above your interest. You have to keep them ahead of every single thing, right? Let's explain this in the form of an example. Assume that you are a CFA coach, you are a CFA mentor, a CFA teacher, tuition teacher, whatever you want to call it, and you have certain notes that you have made that you sell separately apart from the classes, okay? Now you also know that similar notes at a cheaper price are available in the market in the form of, say, Schwezer. You, as a teacher, as the member and candidate, have to be honest. You have to be loyal and tell your clients ki, you know what, clients matlab the students, that yeah, I have these notes and they are priced, let's say 500 rupees, but you will get the same and maybe even better quality in Schwezer that is available in, say, 300 rupees. That is where loyalty comes. आप अपने फायदे के लिए, you're not depriving them, you're not depriving your client of something. You're being honest, you're being loyal to them. You always want their benefit, so you have to be loyal to them, you have to be honest to them, and that is what you did, right? You told them honestly कि यार ये तो है ही, but वो उससे भी better and ज़्यादा cheaper, so that's benefiting them. Had you not told them that, then you would have been disloyal. Taking this example further, the same teacher can have a batch of 10 students. At the same time, he can have just one private student separately. Now, what happens is, when you're taking a batch of 10 students, all 10 individuals are different, right? Somebody may like to study through presentation, somebody may like oral communication. It really depends, right? For example, on YouTube also. So, yeah, but keeping the batch example. So, when it is a batch, when it is a group of people, okay, involved, you can work in favor of a cumulative effort. It will not always happen कि आप हर time हर एक का benefit हमेशा ऊपर पाओगे. You have to think of the benefit of the whole group. You will try to form a structure of teaching that overall you feel fits the whole group. It may not fit one particular individual, but अगर 9 out of 10 people are benefiting extremely from it, then that fits well. This example is to explain mutual funds, right? When a manager is handling a mutual fund, he cannot all the time keep each and every client's interests above everything, because there are 10 clients, suppose, in his fund. Every client will have a different form of interest. Maybe somebody wants something and somebody wants something. You cannot take those into account when there is a group of people, right? So you will, in such cases, think of the whole group as a whole mutual fund as a whole. Now, same example, the teacher, for his one private student, he can customize his form of teaching, his form of giving notes, everything basis that one student, because that student is alone. वो अलग आ रहा है, वो अलग से पढ़ रहा है. So you can customize everything. You can keep his interest the way he wants above everything else, right? That is to explain a private client. So difference between mutual fund client and private client has to be taken into consideration. This is a very trick question. In the exam, they can ask you that, you know, he has a mutual fund, but one particular person wants this. So even if he's still adhering to his duty to clients, if he is benefiting or is being loyal to the whole fund as a whole. So keep that in mind, okay? Very, very important point. Standard 3B, fair dealing. Members and candidates must deal fairly and objectively with all clients when providing investment analysis or engaging in any professional activities. Very, very important. Now, I'm jumping straight to an example because I'm going to continue from there. Example, the teacher has 5 students, okay? Now you have to treat each student fairly. I'm continuing from the first example. Let's assume that you have 5 students in your class. You have to treat all 5 students fairly. You cannot say that Sunny is my best friend's brother, so I'll give him some extra study material. No. You have to treat all 5 students who are paying you the same amount of fees, coming to you with the same expectations, fairly. That is very, very important. Now, always remember, fairly does not mean equally, right? If we continue from the same example, if these 5 students have decided to come in a batch, they're all paying you say 2,000 rupees a month, you have to treat them fairly. Now let's assume that there is one student from this batch, okay, some bunty from this batch also wants extra test series. He wants to do a test series with you, so he gives you 3,000 so that he can avail a certain amount of test series for that additional 1,000 rupees. Can you give him that test series and not give the rest? Yes, because he has paid for it. Different level of services can be provided. You just need to disclose it. You need to inform the other 4 also that, listen, I have these services also. अगर आप भी 3,000 दोगे, आपको भी मिल जाएगा. That is not, the standard does not say that you have to deal with people equally. जो जितना पैसा देगा उनको उतना ही service मिलेगा. That is basic common sense, right? So we have to keep those things in mind. When we say fairly, we just mean that the people who have paid the same amount need to be dealt in a similar way. If, for example, you're giving a certain student, let's take the certain student example, if you're teaching quants, you have to give each of them at least one day to study. No, you can't just say ki I'll give one student one day to study and the other student I'll give 1 week to study for a test. No, you have to treat them fairly. You have to give them all enough time. Yes, like I said, you may give preference in the test series to Bunty because he's paying you that 1,000 extra, but he has paid for that slight preference that you are giving him, right? So different level of payments can call for different services. That is okay in fair dealing. Now, oh my god, kitna baat kar liya. Moving on to standard 3C, we have suitability. Make reasonable inquiry into a client or prospective client's investment experience and appetite. Determine that an investment is suitable for the client and judge the suitability of investments in the context of the client's total portfolio. The key is total portfolio here. Keep in mind. The key point to remember in this standard is very, very simple. अच्छे से client को जानो, समझो what is good for them, what is not good for them in every aspect, in the totality of their being, not just one aspect. Understand your client very, very, very well. Example, and this is my favorite example, doctors. If you are a doctor and a patient comes to you, you have to take his or her history. आप ऐसे ही तो नहीं diagnose कर सकते ना. Take time to understand his or her history. What illnesses does he have? He might have come to you just for a simple viral fever, but you need to spend some time, if he has come to you for the first time, he or she, to understand, does he have any allergies? Does he have any long-term vital illnesses like say diabetes? You need to take in his or her entire medical history. Only then will you be suitable enough to give him or her the right diagnosis, the right advice. अगर आप खुद ही आधा अधूरा information लोगे तो whatever advice, recommendation, diagnosis, medicines that you give him or her will be or can be wrong. So that is why it is extremely important that you take in full information. Right? Now, continuing with the same example, suppose that guy comes to you for, like I said, viral fever, and there is a certain medication that's amazing. That paracetamol is amazing for viral fever, but it's not that very good for somebody who has diabetes, and this guy already told you that he has diabetes. क्या आप वो दवाई दोगे? नहीं, because you have to treat him in his entire aspect. You can't just say that I'll treat the viral fever and let the diabetes go haywire. No, always remember, you have to give your recommendations, your diagnosis on a total basis, total being, total portfolio. It has to be, you have to see everything. You can't just see the current cold that he has or current situation that he has. You have to see every single thing. Very, very important. Now, going a step further in this one, assume that the patient insists, give me this medicine only, even if I have diabetes, I know that I can take it. What will you do in such a situation? बहुत सारे patients करते हैं. People are dheet. Sometimes they just want something, they'll Google it and they feel that nahi, meko to, I to want this only and I've taken it and whatever, and he comes to you and he insists that I want this, please prescribe it so I can buy it. What will you do? You will first try to understand that, is this medicine really gonna affect his diabetes very adversely, or if it's a minimal difference. If you feel that the impact is gonna be very, very minimal, you can listen to that patient, you can give it to him, but and very, very important, you need to take it from that patient in writing that he acknowledges that this medicine is not the best. You already told him that it's not the best, yet he insisted, that's why aap de rahe ho. You can do that. Now, assume that the impact is very big. If you give it, that it can be extremely dangerous. What do you do in that case? In that case, what you can tell the patient is, let's do a complete new body checkup of yours. Let's try to find out if we can update your reports. Maybe, we don't realize, but this medicine is actually suiting you. Let's update your entire medical history once and then you can give it to him. Now, if the patient says, no, I don't want to do that, I just want the medicine. ऐसे केस में आपके पास दो ऑप्शंस है, ओके? Either you completely refuse to take his case, you say, boss, I'm telling you it's a serious medicine, I do not want to give it to you, you please go to some other doctor, okay? That is the most thing. Or you follow whatever rules your hospital says. If the hospital says that, first go to the dean, send in an application, whatever, follow that. So either when he's not willing to update his medical report, or not willing to, because once his medical report is updated, then obviously you can give that medicine, right? But if he's not willing to update it, then either you follow whatever rules your hospital has, or you just tell him that, see, I do not want to deal with this, please go to another doctor. Both works. Very, very important. Even in this case, you have to take it in writing from him that he or she acknowledges everything that you said. Take things in writing. ऐसे मत छोड़ो किसी को. That is the key. Moving on to standard 3D, performance presentation. Standard 3D, performance presentation. When communicating investment performance information, members and candidates must make reasonable efforts to ensure that it is fair, accurate and complete. Key point here is, जो जैसा है वैसा बोलो. Don't try to hide things, don't try to manipulate things, be honest. Whatever it is, good, bad, ugly, say it as is, okay? Example, and again one example that I really like, dietitians on YouTube, they will put their thumbnail saying, guaranteed weight loss in 4 days if you follow this diet. Absolute wrong. How can you guarantee something? You can't, right? They need to be fair enough, maybe put it on the thumbnail itself, guaranteed weight loss in 4 days if you are a female, if you are this age, if you do not have this illness. They have to specify the details. You cannot just be so vague. Basically, that's what it says. Present things in totality, present things in complete honesty. Don't just fool people by saying those one-liners, that is not okay. You have to get into the depth, you have to specify details so that a person is completely aware of what he or she is getting into. What if I follow that diet and in 4 days I don't lose weight? That's an issue, right? Now, if I read on the thumbnail already that, okay, lose weight in 4 days, if you're a female, if you don't have hormonal issues, if you don't have this, if you don't have that, then I'm prepared. I know what this video is promising me. That is what this entire standard says, okay? Now you'll say this is similar to standard 1C, I think, yeah, misrepresentation. Yes, overlays hain, overlaps hote hain, some standards seem very, very similar, and they are. How do you know the difference then? What is the difference between the two? The difference is, misrepresentation was just in totality, more towards the law of things, being in a professional nature. And here, when they say performance presentation, they mean specifically to the clients, right? When you're talking to a client, you tell them the complete picture. Like I said, for the YouTube example, when you're talking to your audience, you're being honest directly to the audience. Your audience is your client, right? You're presenting everything to its complete fairness. That is what this standard differentiates. The meaning overlaps, it's just that is more generic. This is more specifically directed to your clients. और ऐसे guys, बहुत सारे standards हैं that you feel will overlap, and it's okay as long as you know everything that what are the key points, what is important, what is not important, you will pretty much crack it. Now standard 3E, the last one, yes, standard 3E, Preservation of confidentiality. Oh, the example of this is very nice. Anyway, preservation of confidentiality. Members and candidates keep information about current, former, and prospective clients confidential unless the information concerns are needed by law. Basic point is, learn to keep a secret. अपने पेट में बात रखो. If you know something about someone, if you know some details about someone, don't just go out and vomit it out to somebody else. Keep it to yourself, if it's a private point. Giving an example. You met a guy on a date years ago, okay? Say maybe 5 years ago, you met someone, you went out on a date, but things did not work out. For some reason, it just did not work out. You guys did not decide to go on a relationship, and it ended and it was done and dusted. Now 5 years later, your friend happened to meet this guy on a dating app and she tells you about it, and you're like, oh, I know this guy. Uske aage, if you start giving details about the guy, he's like this, he's like that, he did this, he did that. Violation. That's his personal information. Why are you passing it out? Don't, na? Again, this example is very just to explain you, but it's basically keep personal information about people, keep confidential information, keep financial information about your clients, prospective clients, new clients, anybody, confidential. कोई आपको कोई चीज़ इतने trust में बता रहा है या ऐसे बता रहा है that they feel that you're not going to go out and say it, then keep that honesty. Be honest to them. No? Don't just go out and say it. That is what it says. Unless, of course, the police comes to you or somebody from the court comes to you and says that this guy committed a murder and we need to know about him, then please give out the information. That's exactly what the standard says. Unless asked by law, keep things private. So, unless court se koi aa raha hai, police se koi aa raha hai, koi legal authority aa raha hai, keep things private. If any of these guys come, give the information. It's important. Moving on to standard number 4, duties to employers. The person who has hired you, जो आपको पैसा दे रहा है, जो आपको खाना खिला रहा है, जो आपका घर चला रहा है, what are your duties to that guy? Standard 4A, loyalty. Yes, you have to be loyal to your employer as well. In matters related to their employment, members and candidates must act for the benefit of their employers and not deprive them of the advantage of their skills and abilities or basically cause any harm to their employer. Very basic point and most important key takeaways. जिसके थाली में खा रहे हो ना, उसमें छेद कभी मत करना. That is what this entire standard says. Example, straight jumping into it. Let's assume you are working at a company, at a marketing company, and they urgently need a design from you. So marketing companies में से बहुत होता है that they need an urgent graphic design done, and they need it from you. They tell you, please, Tanishka, come and make this design for us. And you know that you can make an extremely amazing design in that 1 hour. But because आपको ये नहीं चाहिए कि हर बार they take you for granted and they just come to you last minute, you make a very average design. You are under violation because you are depriving your employer of your actual skill and potential. You're not supposed to do that. If you know that you can give them 100, then make sure you're giving them 100. Even an 80 is not okay in that case. That is what this entire standard says. Now, this does not mean that they can intrude all the time in your personal life or, just completely take away your personal life balance. But the standard implies that such conversations we assume you will have on a one-to-one basis with your employer, and you should in general. So it is very important, right? There's one more thing. Also, in this standard, there's one more thing. Let's assume that this employer is cheating on the client. वो client को ना cheat करके बोल रहा है कि I'll charge you 10,000. You know it shouldn't be more than 5,000, even including profits. In that case, will you still support your employer? No. You will support the client. Remember, client number 1, employer number 2 in all cases, and you number last. Even in this standard, even if we are talking about duties to employers, even then the client has to take precedence, and that is an important takeaway from this point. Please keep this in mind, okay? Now, standard 4B, additional compensation agreement. Members and candidates must not accept gifts, compensations, etc. that can cause a conflict with their employers unless they have written consent from all parties involved. Now, very important before I get into an example, what is an additional compensation? Additional compensation basically means something, a reward that is tied to a future activity, something that you will do something, तो आपको ये reward मिलेगा. And a gift is something जो basis past performance आपको मिले. This standard clearly mentions that for additional compensation, something that you say that if I do this, I will get this. For that, you need written permission from your employer. Written permission includes email permission as well, but you need to get it in writing that he approves of it. For gifts, something that a client or a member, somebody has given to you for past performance, you do not need written approval from your employer, but you need to disclose it in writing. You need to send it in writing or an email saying this is what this client has given me, so that you can maintain your independence and objectivity. Very important, yaad rakho. I'm going to further explain this standard in the form of an example as always. You are working somewhere as a full-time job, okay? But your sister, who's in a similar industry, not exactly same industry, but similar industry, urgently needs your help. So she requests you, can you help me out in the weekends because I need to, urgently finish up this project. And if you do so, I will give you this much money. Can you take it up? Yes, you can. But you need to tell this entire situation, this work that you're going to do, the money that you're going to receive to your full-time employer. You need to tell him, see, my sister needs his help and I would like to do so. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to get. And you cannot just say it. You need to give it in writing, and he or she, the employer that you have, needs to approve it, because this is additional compensation, right? Something that you will do, that you will do an activity, you will work for your sister. That's how you will get a little bit of salary. So you need to tell that to your manager, your existing manager, and you need to get his or her permission. Then there'll be no violation. If you do not get a written permission from them, you are in violation. Even if it is not a similar industry, you have to tell your manager. It is very important. कुछ भी आप ऐसे करो जिससे आपको reward मिलेगा या कुछ भी compensation मिलेगा, benefits मिलेंगे, gifts मिलेंगे, you have to tell your manager and take it in writing approval from them. If they do not give it in writing, it is a violation. Always remember that. Moving on to standard 4C, we have, amazing, responsibilities of supervisors. Very important one, listen. Members and candidates must make reasonable efforts to ensure that anyone subject to their supervision complies with all rules and regulations and the code of standard ethics. Key takeaway from this standard is that position comes with responsibility, power comes with responsibility. Every right that you get comes with a certain level of duty. If you are given the power or the position of being a manager in a company, a supervisor in a company, the founder, the CMO, the CEO, the CFO, whatever, that does not come free of cost. You have to pay a cost, and that cost is that you need to make sure that everybody under you is complying with the rules, is complying with the regulations, is doing their best. Because if they do not perform, कभी भी juniors की गलती नहीं होती. It is always on the mentor, the manager, the supervisor. Very, very important. An example to explain this: you are a founder at a startup and you have a team of 10 people under you. Now, if it is your job, like I said, it is your job to see to it that each and every person from those 10 people are following all the rules and regulations of the office, of the city that you are in, the state, the country, the legal laws, the financial laws, the code of ethics standards, and it is your job to form a system within the organization so that they follow it. You need to form a compliance system. You need to create a structure so that they are able to follow these rules. If you're not able to create that structure, till you are not able to create that structure, actually, don't even hire them. Don't create that team. Because if you cannot create that structure, if you cannot have that system in place, you do not have the right to get such a big position. That's what this standard says. Always remember, power, position comes with responsibilities. That's what the standard says. My throat is hurting. Moving on to standard number 5, investment analysis, recommendations and actions.